This is Lorenzo, and this is the training routines taxonomy video series, lesson number 16. It's on the 12th routine, the pull track, which is a gymnastics routine focused on helping you develop maximal strength in the vertical dimension. So think pull-ups. It has been designed to help you achieve 3 of the 30 fitness benchmarks or 3 of the 21 gymnastics benchmarks. It is the 360 pull, the pull-up, and the muscle-up. And we're going to do that using the MSP exercise protocol framework. Only 5 exercises. Let's take a look. The pull track is one of 7 upper body routines and one of 3 pulling vector routines. As we already saw, the routine type that we're dealing with, it is a track. Therefore, it's a gymnastics routine, and it's designed to help you develop pulling strength in the vertical dimension. More specifically, the pull track has been designed to help us master one of the 9-dimensional skills, and that is climbing strength. Now, before we take a look at the 5 exercises that make up the pull track routine, it's important that we first understand the objectives, strategies, and tactics that will drive its success by looking at our training plan. Let's take a look. The pull track, as previously mentioned, has been designed to help you achieve 3 of the 30 fitness benchmarks or 3 of the 21 gymnastics benchmarks. The first is the 360 pull, which is a benchmark of dynamic, straight arm, straight body, stability and strength. And technically, it's a benchmark of multi-vector strength, not just vertical vector strength, as you'll see later. As for our second objective, we have the pull-up, which is a benchmark of dynamic bent arm strength. Your goal as a recreational male athlete is to do 18 consecutive pull-ups with good form. And for the ladies is to do 9 consecutive pull-ups with good form. Once we've built sufficient stability and strength, we can start to work on our third and final objective, which is the muscle up, a benchmark of dynamic bent arm strength. Your goal as a recreational male athlete is to do 3 consecutive pull-ups. So once you can do a muscle up, your goal is to do 3 in a row with good form. And for the ladies, 1 clean rep is sufficient. As for our strategy, the 360 pull, the pull-up, and muscle up, they all depend on shoulder flexion mobility, as you can see there, scapular depression and retraction stability, and finally, elbow flexion and shoulder extension strength. For our tactics or the ideal training environment and equipment that we need to implement our strategy, we need a ring training zone or a stall bar training zone. And as far as equipment is concerned, we'll need a dowel and resistance bands. Okay, so with our objectives and our strategy in mind and our tactics in place, we're finally ready to see what the MSP exercise protocol framework looks like as it applies to the pull track. So for our first 2 exercises in the mobility category, serving as our warm-up, but also an opportunity for us to deal with those chronic shoulder flexion mobility deficits. For our first exercise, we have the bent arm butcher's block, followed by the straight arm scap pull. In the stability category, following the 60-second rule, we have for our third exercise, the straight arm active hang. And for our fourth exercise, we have a bent arm chin hold. Remember, if we have a straight arm hold, we also need a bent arm hold. For our fifth and final exercise in the strength category, following the 30-rep rule, we have the full range pull-up itself, as well as its beginner and more advanced progressions. So for our first exercise, we have the butcher's block done on the stall bars, as we can see it over here. The butcher's block, or the preacher stretch, as it is often called, is a shoulder flexion, thoracic extension, static hold, whereby you'll start by gripping a dowel with a supine position, so palms facing down. You will place your elbow on a rung that will allow you to have sufficient load to get into a deep stretch. Firmly place your elbow onto the rung. Take a few steps back. Hold this position in a hollow body and hold for 2 minutes. Alternatively, if you don't have a stall bar, you can do it just as easily on the plyo box, following the exact same strategy. Moving on to our second exercise, we have the straight arm scap pull, as we see it over here. On the stall bar, start with a pronated grip, palm facing forward. Get into a dead hang position. So at the bottom, you will then depress and retract the scapula. You will hold it at the top for 1 to 2 seconds. This is a 4-second shrug, which you will do for a total of 15 reps or at least 1 minute. If you don't have stall bars installed, a door frame bar is more than sufficient, where you'll follow the exact same protocol. Together, the butcher's block and scap pull, serving as our mobility complex, shouldn't take us longer than 5 minutes to complete and helps us to fulfill the minimum shoulder flexion mobility requirements for more efficient vertical pulling. Moving on to our third exercise in the stability category, following the 60-second rule, we will start with the active hang, as we can see it over here. Starting in the same position as the scap pulled pronated grip, we will then actively depress and retract the scapula. Hold this position for 60 seconds. If you find yourself unable to hold for 60 seconds straight, hold it for as long as you can. So let's say you can only hold it for 40 seconds. Take a short break and then complete the remaining 20 seconds as quickly as you can, but just make sure that you accumulate a total of 60 seconds. So for our fourth exercise, we have the bent arm chin hold. So as you can see, whereas we started with a straight arm active hold, to complete our stability complex, we need a bent arm active hold, as we can see over here. Start by walking your way up the ladder with a supine grip, palm facing you. In a bent arm position, you will pull the chest towards the bar. Remember to depress and retract the scapula, arch the back, keep the feet together, and then hold this position for a total of 60 seconds. We recommend starting with 3 sets of 20-second holds. As you get stronger, move to 2 sets of 30 seconds. And then something that I like to do is hold it for as long as I can, but maybe it's not a full minute. I might get to 45 seconds in one go. I'll take a short break and complete the remaining 15 seconds for a total of 60 seconds. Again, for those of you who don't have access to stall bars, the door frame bar is a perfect substitute for both your straight arm active hang and your bent arm chin hold. Together, the active hang and the chin hold, serving as our straight arm, bent arm stability complex, should take us no longer than 5 minutes to complete, which will help us to fulfill the minimum scapular depression and retraction stability requirements for safer, more efficient, and more effective vertical pulling. Okay, so once we're done with our mobility and stability preparatory work, we're finally ready to bring those individual elements together into the fifth and final practice of this routine, the pull-up itself, as well as its beginner and advanced progressions, following the 30-rep rule. So for our first example, we have the chin-up on the stall bar. You can start with a supinated grip for the chin-up, or you can also do a pronated grip, focus more on the pull-ups. Either way, you are going to start at the bottom by first depressing and retracting the scapula. Pull only using the elbows all the way to the top. Hold for 1 second at the top, lower yourself down, and do as many reps as you can following the 30-rep rule. Alternatively, you can do it on the door frame bar as we see it here. And for those of you who require assistance, you can use a resistance band to help you to do your pull-ups or chin-ups on the door frame bar as well as the stall bars. Finally, and my favorite, is to do pull-ups on the rings. I will start with a pronated grip position, as you see here. And as I pull up, I will naturally move into a supinated position to get the greatest biomechanical advantage for the pull-up, again following the 30-rep rule. Now, there are two main approaches that we can take to fulfill the 30-rep rule. The first is what we call the fixed multiple strategy. The second is the test training strategy. Starting with our fixed multiple strategy first. We saw that there are 6 possible multiples for our 30 reps. The first is we can do 1 set of 30 reps straight. Very difficult to do. We can do 2 sets of 15, 3 sets of 10. We can do 5 sets of 6, 6 sets of 5, and finally we can do 10 sets of 3. Recall that each multiple has its own trade-offs. For example, if we focus on doing 30 pull-ups straight, first of all, that's very difficult. You're going to have to pick a progression that is very light, allowing you to do 30 pull-ups in one go. But the benefit there is it'll only take you 2 minutes to do. But this is more focused on endurance. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we could do 10 sets of 3, which is more focused on strength, which we need to do because if we want to still work on our 360 pull and our muscle ups, we need to get really strong in our pull-ups. However, the trade-off here is that it's going to take more than 20 minutes to complete because we have at least 9 resting periods lasting probably 1 to 2 minutes each to complete this multiple. Now, of course, we can do a combination of all these multiples too. We can, for example, do 1 set of 15. So that would give us 15 reps. And then we could do 3 sets of 5, giving us another 15. Furthermore, I can choose to combine different types of pull-up progressions or variations with different types of multiples. So for example, I could do 3 sets of 5 with no assistance. And then for my last set of 15, I could choose to do 15 reps on a band. But whatever your selection, this is known as the fixed multiples approach to fulfilling the 30 rep rule. As for our second approach, which I call test training, also known as TT, as expressed here. Step 1, pick the pull-up progression that's the same as the benchmark. Remember we said the benchmark for pull-ups for guys is to do 18 consecutive reps of the pull-up, not assisted, not weighted. For ladies, that's 9 reps, not assisted and not weighted. Next, your goal now is to do as many pull-ups as you can, aiming for the target. So for example, for my very first set, I'm going to do as many pull-ups as I can. So let's say I only get to 16 pull-ups. I still have 14 reps left to do to complete the 30 rep target, which means I can then do the remaining 14 reps any way I like. What I would typically then do is do as many as I can again. And so let's say this time I only do 10 reps, which means then I only have 4 left, and then I will do 4. So I'll do 16, then I'll do 10, and then I will do 4. Another thing I like to do is, let's say I did 16 pull-ups for my very first set as my benchmark test. I was short 2 of my benchmark, and so I still have 14 reps left to go. For my last 14, I will typically spend my last 14 reps on even more difficult progression. So I'll either do weighted pull-ups, I could do, as you see here, the rope climb, or I will practice my 360 pull, or even some muscle ups. Finally, once you've achieved your pull-up benchmark, 18 for the guys, 9 for the girls, or you're very close, you can start to practice the various 360 pull as well as the muscle up progressions following the 30 rep rule as well. So in summary, the pull track is the butcher's block, followed by the scap pulls as well as the active hang, followed by the bent arm chin hold and 30 pull-ups any way you see fit.